My elementary school classmate Marita's father was a well-respected obstetrician in our area. Their family hospital was built after the Great Kanto earthquake in 1923. It was a two-story Western-style house, covered in ivy on the walls, which made it look rather eerie and creepy. So, us neighborhood kids jokingly called it a haunted house. But in truth, Marita's dad was a reputable and kind doctor. The hospital was always bustling with patients. However, not long after we graduated from elementary school, Marita's father suddenly passed away. The hospital shut down afterward, and only Marita, his mom, his younger sister, and his grandmother remained living in the main house next to the Western-style building. A few years later, when we entered high school, I happened to be in the same class as Marita again. One day, while chatting with a group of friends, someone, can't remember who, suggested hosting a ghost story gathering at Marita's Western-style house. We asked Marita about it, and his response was oddly specific.
We can, but only on the night of July 7th.
Why? We asked.
Because ever since my dad died, our house gets haunted every year on July 7th. So on that day, my whole family stays over at our relative's place. No one's home, so it's more convenient.
His words were like pouring gasoline on a fire. And since July 7th that year happened to be a Saturday, everyone got even more excited. When the day finally came, 7 or 8 of us gathered at Marita's house. We drank beer for the first time and were all totally hyped. As it got later, someone suggested it was time to go to the old hospital for the ghost stories. We left the main house, crossed the courtyard, and arrived in front of the Western-style building. In the center of a former patient room, we lit a candle and began casually sharing spooky stories. Eventually, it was Marita's turn. We urged him to tell us what exactly happened every year on July 7th. Marita said that the ghost that appeared wasn't his late father. His father died in the winter due to a brain hemorrhage. There was no grudge or anything like that.
So, what kind of ghost is it?
He said the incident happened before his father's death, on the night of July 7th of that same year. That night, it was raining. A pregnant woman, a complete stranger, appeared outside the hospital. She was drenched from the downpour and clearly near labor. She could give birth at any moment. Marita's father quickly brought her into the hospital. Unfortunately, the baby didn't survive. It was a little girl. The mother herself was in critical condition and barely hanging on. They managed to save her, but it took an entire sleepless night. After finally getting a moment to rest, Marita's father and the nurse stepped out for a short 30-minute break. When they returned, the woman had disappeared. She hadn't brought any belongings, just the soaked clothes she was wearing. She hadn't even registered her name. Now she was gone, and no one had any idea where to look. The police were notified, but the woman was never found. Eventually, the matter was dropped.
So, the ghost is that missing woman?
No, it's the baby who didn't survive. The baby could be heard crying.
Marita's father believed the mother would come back someday, so he never buried the baby. He kept the remains in a container and placed it in an unused room in the hospital, just in case the mother returned to take her child home. But before that ever happened, Marita's father passed away that winter. And ever since then, every year on July 7th, crying sounds of a baby could be heard from that empty room. No one ever actually saw anything supernatural, but the crying was undeniably real. As for Marita, whether he was brave or just numb to it, he was honestly a bit off. Because the room we chose for our ghost story gathering was right next to the one holding the baby's remains. Morita had never told a lie before, and this story didn't sound made up at all. After hearing that, a few people felt too creeped out and decided to leave. In the end, only one other friend and I stayed, but we felt uneasy being in that room next door. So we decided to go back to the main house. Just as we stood up to leave, two of the friends who had already gone ahead came back in, faces pale as sheets.
What's wrong? What happened?
There's a woman standing at the hospital entrance, completely drenched.
No way. Are you serious?
We're not kidding. Everyone else already ran off.
Morita's house was surrounded by walls, so the only way to leave was either by going around to a small gate behind the main house or through the hospital's front entrance. These two had tried going through the hospital but got so terrified they ran back. We frantically looked for a way to escape. Someone found a bicycle and used it as a step to climb over the wall. As I was climbing over, just as I reached the top, I heard it, a baby's cry. It sounded like a whimper, or maybe a car screeching in the distance, or even a cat's meow. All of those would make sense. But we knew in our hearts, it was a baby crying. What's more, as I hung there on top of the wall, I had a clear vantage point through the hospital's window. I saw a woman with long hair facing our direction. She was holding something that looked like a box. I panicked and fell off the wall. I think I blacked out for a moment. The others who had climbed over woke me up. Strangely, even though there was just one wall between us and the hospital. We couldn't hear the crying anymore. We bolted from the area, running until we were out of breath. Once we were all together again, we started shouting at Morita.
That was terrifying. Why didn't you warn us sooner? Are you stupid?
Morita just muttered quietly.
Yeah, it really was scary.
I thought about the woman I had seen. Could that box have held the baby's remains?
Yeah, they were kept in a wooden box.
He replied. The tone he used made me want to punch him twice just to feel better. In the years after that, July 7th never brought any more hauntings to Morita's house. Before we graduated high school, the whole family moved away, and the Western-style house was torn down. Today, it's a convenience store.